Morning, Jill.
Good morning.
Having a quorum, I will open the October meeting of the New York State Cemetery Board. I'm Mark Pattison, representing Walter Mosley, Secretary of State, and Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill Faber and I represent Attorney General Letitia James.
And Tom is otherwise occupied, is that right?
Tom is unavailable.
Yes, not available today. So we'll dive right into the meeting. Is there we have to approve the minutes of the meeting? Maybe you have process. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Of the last meeting, does anybody have any questions or suggestions for change of the minutes from the last meeting as distributed? I hear none, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last cemetery board meeting. Do I have a second? Jill, it's gotta be you.
Second.
Di, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. We're joined by Rob Vandeluz, our counsel. Do you have anything on legislation or regulations?
I have nothing on either legislation or regulations.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions of Rob? I will move on to the division report. Louis has been out and about, various reasons the last couple of weeks. So do you have a division report?
Yes, I just, first, let me just report on staffing. We have an accepted offer for our newly created investigator position in Syracuse. The candidate is supposed to start November 7th. I do not want to say a name until the person starts, because I'm afraid of jinxing it. But we do have someone starting. We are working still on getting someone hired for the Binghamton position, and we are working on approval to offer a job to a newly created Syracuse position. Senior accountant. And we also have a candidate to replace Alicia as assistant director, but that is in the works. There's a bunch of civil service stuff that has to happen to make that possible. And as far as I know, that is in progress. We are also working on approval to add a second accountant in New York City. There's some internal bureaucratic issues that make that more complicated, but we theoretically have support for the idea, so we're hoping that be able to actually do that. That's the staffing piece. On everything else, my mind is still in California. Michael Katina, who's on, and I and Terry Ferrezzi, who's still out west, are flying back today. We're in Sacramento for the North American Death Care Regulators Association Conference. Covered a very wide range of topics and also brought together people from, I think, 8 or 9, I've lost track, different jurisdictions, which was good. We got to exchange a lot of ideas about investments, archaeological remains, which is not our responsibility in the state, but we get questions about custody control of remains, total return. We got a hands-on demonstration of anatomical donation, and I mean up close and personal, which was not something, again, we deal with, but it's sort of definitely adjacent to things that we do and need to know about, and very interesting legal and bureaucratic aspects to how they handle that as well. So we're hoping to.
Louis, if you're still talking, I can't hear you.
I'm still talking. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear now?
No, she's not.
Mike Katina, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
And I can hear Jill.
Jill, it's
We
something
can
on,
hear you, Jill.
I'm gonna text her.
something on her end.
To everyone, including Jill.
Oh, that's better. Okay.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know what that
All right.
was, but Louis finished his report about.
Just background on being in California.
Okay, yeah, you're back. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna obviously continue our conversations on things of mutual concern. We have regular, at least quarterly meetings, and I think we're trying to do it more often. Next year's conference will be in Illinois, so weather won't be as good. But that's I think everything I have to report.
Okay,
Rob, are we gonna mention the pylon thing in public session, in exempt session, in both?
So last week, the division.
having already done it.
No, I mean, there's nothing secret about it, it's just
Uh,
a question of how to tee this up.
So last week, the division received a communication from the town of Babylon indicating that its draft environmental impact statement was ready for review in relation to Pine Lawn Cemetery's proposal to lease cemetery lands and engage in a major renovation. Comments are due, including from the cemetery board, by November 6th. Because that does not fit with the cadence of this and then our next regularly scheduled cemetery board meeting, we are going to have to consider whether or not to schedule a cemetery board meeting before November 6th for the purposes of providing comment, if any.
Yeah, I started reading it on the train on the way up. Somehow I did not get through all 343 pages of the main document, let alone the supporting documents.
Okay, but the point is staff will review and suggest comments.
My assumption is we'll do what we did last time, is draft a resolution for the board to
So
adopt.
we will be working with that to schedule a meeting in that regard.
I mean, I have a target date for it, but when we get to the end of the meeting, we can discuss that. I just wanted to mention that that was out there.
Okay, well, you do. Any other, nothing else from you, Louis? Okay.
Not for public session, the two matters I want to present to the board in the exempt session.
We will be going to an exempt session later, and I'll work with council to announce that, and we'll talk about it near the end of the meeting. So, is there a vandalism report, Alicia, other than what's mailed?
Do we have statistics, actually, before we get to vandalism,
What statistics?
annual reporting?
There's
Okay,
trickle.
so the answer is no, we don't have one this month.
It's, vandalism, we have 4 applications before the board today, all of which are in Steuben County. We pretty much drained the fund if we had to pay out everything that we're obligated to today. But again, it's a timing thing. A lot of work isn't gonna get done now because it's the end of the year. So we'll pick it up in spring and do it all over again.
Before we get to the actual vandalism applications, well, first, do you guys have any questions on that?
No, I have no questions.
I realize I do not have the abandonment report ready, mostly because I was in California last week and didn't have a chance to finalize changes. I like to capture everything through the last quarter, which closed very close to when I left. We're kind of a month off on reporting anyway, so I'm still reporting quarterly. It's just instead of in the 4th, 7th, and 10th months, I've been doing it in the 5th, 8th, and 11th months. So we'll continue that and I'll report it in November.
Okay.
Which means it might actually include October data as well, depending on what happens between now and then. There's nothing that's like urgently banging at our door that you need to know about the second.
Okay, any other questions for Louis, Alicia, or Rob? We'll move into the vandalism applications. We have 4, as was stated, all in Steuben County. What's up with that? We'll start with Fairview Cemetery in Steuben
Weather's
County.
bad down there.
Huh?
Weather's bad down there. I don't.
So.
Hey, this is Michael Katina, investigator presenting. I do apologize. I brought home a cold from California, so I might be a little hard to hear.
I blame the other mic.
Yeah, definitely. The Fairview Cemetery is a small rural cemetery in the town of Howard in Steuben County. They submitted an application for the repair of 10 hazardous monuments. I visited the cemetery and confirmed that all 10 monuments appear to pose a hazard. The most recent monument is dated 1931, and the cemetery stated they do not have lot owner records from this period. They ran a legal notice once a week for 3 weeks in Featured Media, which is a weekly printed paper, for $222.75 with no response. It is the division's understanding that the cemetery has determined the lot cannot be located. The cemetery submitted 3 repair estimates, the lowest of which was from a company known as Everlasting Monuments for $15,135 to reset 10 monuments on concrete foundations to a depth of 42 inches, including a 15-year warranty. Fairview Cemetery recently received funds in April of 2024. They completed that project with no problems. They are up to date with vandalism payments, and I recommend approval of this for $15,357.75.
Thank you. Council, anything to add?
Only that if the board does choose to approve the application, the board make the approval subject to the availability of funds.
Okay, any questions from the rest of the board? I have none. I'll
No.
make a motion to approve the application of Fairview Cemetery in Steuben County in the amount of $15,357.75, subject to the availability of funds. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jill. All in favor? Aye. Application is approved. Next one is Grove Cemetery, again, in Steuben County, in the amount of $46,844. I'm assuming, Michael, you're still presenting?
Yes, I am. And the Grove Cemetery is a small rural cemetery in the town of Bath, located in Steuben County. They submitted for repair of 34 hazardous monuments. I visited the cemetery and confirmed that all 34 monuments appear to pose a hazard. The most recent monument was dated 1937, and the cemetery stated that they do not have a lot owner record for that period. They ran legal notices once a week for 3 weeks in the Southern Tier Shopper for $279 with no response. It is the division's understanding the cemetery has determined that the lot owners cannot be located. The cemetery submitted 3 repair estimates for the lowest of which was from Hargraves Construction for $46,565 to reset 34 monuments on concrete foundations to a depth of 42 inches with a 15-year warranty. The Grove Cemetery recently received funds in January 2024. They're up to date on vandalism payments, and I recommend the approval of this amount of $46,844.
Thank you, Council.
No comments from council.
All right. Jill, any comments, any questions?
No.
Great. So I'll make a motion to approve the application from Grove Cemetery in Steuben County for hazardous monuments in the amount of $46,844, subject to the availability of funds. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The
Aye.
motion is approved. Next one is Pleasant Valley Cemetery in Steuben County in the amount of $22,888.25. Michael?
But- Yes. Excuse me. Sorry, I just had a cough there. Pleasant Valley Cemetery is a small rural cemetery in the town of Urbana, located in Steuben County. They submitted an application for the repair of 23 hazardous monuments. I visited the cemetery and confirmed that all 23 monuments appeared to pose a hazard. The most recent monument is dated 1962, and the cemetery stated they do not have a lot owner records for that period. They ran a legal notice once a week for 3 weeks in the Southern Tier Shopper, $272.25, with no response. It is the division's understanding that the cemetery has determined that the lot owners cannot be located. The cemetery submitted 3 repair estimates, the lowest of which is from Hargraves Construction for $22,616 to reset 23 stones on concrete foundations at a depth of 42 inches, including a 15-year warranty. Pleasant Valley Cemetery received funds in 2023. It completed that project with no issues. They are up to date on their vandalism payments, and I recommend approval in the amount of $42,880.25.
Council?
Nothing further, council.
Subject to availability of funds.
Yes. All right, so Jill, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the application of Pleasant Valley Cemetery in Spring County for hazardous monuments in the amount of $22,888.25, subject to the availability of funds. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Application is approved. Last one, Michael, is Addison Hill Cemetery in Steuben County. 42
Yes.
monuments of $57,725. Can you give us an overview?
Yes, the Addison Hill Cemetery is a small rural cemetery in the town of Tuscarora, Steuben County. They submitted an application for the repair of 42 hazardous monuments. I visited the cemetery and confirmed that all 42 monuments appear to pose a hazard. The most recent monument is dated 1944, and the cemetery stated that they do not have a lot owner records for that period. They ran a legal notice once a week for 3 weeks in the Addison Post with no response. It is the division's understanding that the cemetery has determined that the lot owners cannot be located. The cemetery submitted 1 repair estimate from DC Masonry for $57,248. That averages out to $1,363 per monument, which is consistent with the area. To reset 42 monuments on concrete foundations to a depth of 42 inches, including a 15-year warranty. The cemetery did run an ad in a newspaper to try to contact additional bidders, but was unable to. The Addison Hill first application for funds. This is Addison Hill's first application for funds. They are up to date on vandalism payments, and I recommend approval of the amount of $57,725.
Council?
Nothing further, council.
Phyllis, would you like to add the caveat? No.
Subject to
No, he doesn't have to do it. I got it.
availability.
All right, so Jill, any questions of this application?
No.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the application of Addison Hill Cemetery for hazardous monuments in the amount of $57,725, subject to availability of funds. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, all in favor? Aye. The application is approved. That includes our applications of vandalism funds. We have several other things on the agenda.
Michael, I'll do forest lawns, so you don't have to strain.
Okay.
First is Forest Lawn St. Matthews, an application for a columbarium. Lewis, I
Okay.
believe you're gonna.
This is a little bit of a wrinkle on our usual columbarium application. This type of project we normally would approve on using our delegated authority. But let me take us, so this is in, sorry, what the cemetery calls, what's called the fountain section of the cemetery. However, the fountain has been unused and unusable and apparently prohibitively expensive to repair for many years. The cemetery has removed the fountain. Parenthetically, based on the limited facts known to us, we do not believe the removal of the fountain was a major alteration that needed our approval. And proposes to put a columbarium there instead. The reason we're here talking to you guys about this instead of just approving it is because the cemetery is running low on inventory. They're down to 18% of their niche spaces available. They've got a proven track record of selling niche space. There are people who want this product. and they can afford it. So from that perspective, it's a good project. Several lot owners wrote to the cemetery in response to the posted signs objecting to it. One of them actually even made the local news, and there's a tiny story about it where it said, well, this one person, they're proposing to put this in, and this one person says it's an eyesore. So we think on balance, the project will benefit the cemetery and its lot owners, so we're recommending approval, subject to receipt of any other local approvals they might need. Parentheses, I don't think they need any, but we put that in there just in case. That said, we directed the cemetery to write to the lot owners who had objected. First of all, we directed them to reach out to those lot owners, and my understanding is that they've had conversations with the lot owners, and some of reached some of the lot owners, and some of them actually have withdrawn their objections. But to make sure that everyone had a chance to be heard, we then asked the cemetery to write to them and let them know the meeting is happening right now, and give them the opportunity to speak to the board before our recommendation is voted on. Again, aesthetics are a subjective matter from the perspective of the
We'll
cemetery.
wait and see if there's somebody that can offer some things that will
Yeah.
change our division's view. All right, so that being said, is there anyone here that wishes to address the board? Is there someone here from Forest Lawn who wants to address the board?
David Fleming's here from Forest Lawn.
All right, would you like to
Plus a
speak?
whole bunch of people on the call.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd like to have the,
It's whatever we'd like to have said.
I'd be happy to share some information at the moment. Just going backwards, the fountain was installed approximately 32 years ago. It's not ever worked optimally. It caused some issues with spraying other monuments and people visiting. Hasn't worked effectively or worked at all for many years, as Mr. Polishuk pointed out. It's been off and on. Several months ago, the fountain was removed, and I just want to make sure that we have a level set as far as what the fountain was. I would say it was more akin to a fancy outdoor fireplace from Home Depot, if you want to think of the bricks around the edge. It's just.
I was thinking bird bath.
But it's, we're not talking about some ornate structure. It was a low-walled fountain in that area, and it's in the Garden of St. Mark. And the cemetery proposes, as you've seen from the application, installation of this new columbarium. It's a small columbarium. It's not a massive structure, and plan on landscaping as well. I think it'll beautify the area, which currently has nothing. There is no fountain in that location currently.
Okay, anything else from Forest Lawn?
Not this time.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the board on this matter? It doesn't sound like that. I know that we were hopeful that Forest Lawn could address the concerns of the lot owners were there. And again, just to emphasize, it's not just pro forma when we invite people to speak. The division can make its recommendation, but the board has its own independent authority, and so we welcome public comment and take it seriously.
And since I'll just add to further underscore that point, I am aware of only one other situation in which a cemetery received negative comments in response to a posting. And at the meeting where the division first presented the matter to the board directed that the matter be tabled and directed that the parties talk to each other more to try to come up with a mutually agreeable solution. Ultimately, that didn't work out, but I believe we gave them 2 months to talk. So
But
this is very much a meaningful opportunity.
At this point, we have no other public comment. So Jill, do you have any questions or thoughts on this matter?
I don't, no.
I don't either. I think the cemetery has reviewed the application. I think I've reviewed the application. I think the cemetery's made a good case for the columbarium as a operational issue, and I think they've worked at least at our direction and at their own initiative to try to mitigate the concerns that were expressed. So
Yeah, Yeah, I
appreciate that.
Exactly. I appreciate that they reached out and
So,
talked to all these folks.
Council, did you have any to add?
Based upon the description in the application, the proposed columbarium is 81 square feet. So for the purposes of seeker, the board can treat this as a type 2 action.
If there are no other questions or comments from the board, I'll make a motion to approve the application from Forest Lawn at St. Matthews for the installation of a columbarium. It's subject to other permits.
At a total cost not to, I actually wrote
Read it, if that's okay.
Approving the motion to approve the application at a total cost not to exceed $165,000, subject to receipt of any other required approvals.
Okay, do I have a second? Jill?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Application is approved. Second application is for a major alteration from North Ridge Cemetery.
Mike,
This
do
is-
you want me to try this? Do you want me to try this one, or do you think you can do it?
I can do it.
Go ahead, Michael.
Unless, and you might want to jump in, Lewis, when we talk about.
I'll try not to.
Okay. The North Ridge Burial Association is a mid-sized suburban cemetery in the town of Cambria, which is located in Niagara County. They applied for the demolition of a condemned church on the property and to build an office storage building in the same footprint. The work will not affect any monuments, and there are no plans to close roads or limit access to any graves. The existing church was condemned by the town, and the cost of repairing the church is many times what the cemetery can afford. The cemetery was issued an order of non-compliance because prior to this board approving the application of the church demolition, the cemetery demolished the church. In response to the issuing of the non-compliance, the cemetery replied that the demolition was time sensitive because a local contractor had offered to volunteer his services. However, there was a deadline on when work would be needed to be done. So basically, the work had to be done at that time. Otherwise, they would have had to pay the full cost. This work was done at a total cost of $9,107 to demo the church. And if the cemetery would have waited for board approval, the cost likely would have exceeded $30,000 with another contractor. The cemetery has agreed in the future to return to defer to the cemetery board's authority. The cost of construction is not expected to exceed $191,074, which will be prepaid for using interest and dividends from the PM fund. The cemetery has already received all the required work permits and approvals. North Ridge Burial Association expects the exterior of the project to be completed in approximately 1 month, with interior construction taking approximately 5 months. I recommend the cemetery adopt a resolution approving non-pro-tunc the demolition of the church building and approving construction of a new office and garage at the cost not to exceed $156,967, subject to the cemetery approval of the cemetery renovation, cemetery board's approval of the receipt of all required permits and approvals.
Jeff, before, council probably has something to add on this, but just for the board's information, the fact that they've responded in this, our typical process for, this isn't written in stone, it's not written in statute either. Our typical process for enforcement, identification of violations is that we issue a notice of non-compliance. We ask the cemetery to provide a statement responding is basically explaining their non-compliance and stating how they're gonna come into compliance. In most cases, we find those statements satisfactory and leave it at that and don't propose penalties. I'm not at all sure that this is the end of this matter when it comes to penalties. We haven't made any decisions yet. We think that they ought to get their building up. And we think that had they waited for our approval, we would have approved the demolition of this building, which is why I'm not suggesting you guys hold up a non-proton approval here pending that. This notwithstanding the fact that we haven't made any decisions yet, in cases like this where there was willful non-compliance, but it's not absolutely horrible facts, one way we've resolved disputes is proposing that instead of a monetary penalty to the state, which is what our statute allows, we ask the cemetery to essentially pay itself a penalty by restricting, we have in the past asked cemeteries to pay themselves a penalty by voluntarily transferring funds to their permanent maintenance fund. So they still feel a little bit of a bite, but it still helps them rather than harming them. I mean, finding someone to give the money to us has a punitive capacity, but it's really only making the corporation poorer, so we tend to try to avoid that unless there's something that's really egregious. Having said that, we haven't decided on that yet. We wanted to basically just get this off our decks, but conversations are going to continue with the cemetery in the interim for some type we will probably seek agreement as to some type of appropriate corrective action beyond, we're sorry, we won't do it again.
Council?
Starting with seeker. So based on the description of the proposed project and the application of 1,920 square feet, the cemetery board can treat this as a type 2 action. Pursuant to 6 NYCR 617.5 C9. I have given, so, you know, the cemetery board is aware under not-for-profit corporation law 1504, it can impose a penalty following an adjudicatory hearing of up to $1,000 per violation for a cemetery that fails to follow the statute. Article 15 or the implementing regulations. I'm happy to go on further if the board so wishes.
And I'm hoping that we don't have to go there and that we can reach some kind of.
Yeah, I think a separate aside from this particular issue, this just seems stupid to me. We ought to find a way so that the cemetery board can respond to timeliness issues without, having somebody basically go into non-compliance for rational reasons. And then, of course, people who do it without regard to the rules don't make any attempt. So I'd like to see if we look at it, and if we always don't impose a penalty because it'll hurt the cemetery, then maybe we need to look at that too. So maybe a broader discussion is warranted.
Always is too strong a word.
Very frequently, yeah. So again, I think we don't want to encourage people to ignore the rules, and then just ask for forgiveness later. But we ought to find a way to make sure that we can at least, if they have a timeless issue, that we can attempt to address it and keep them in compliance.
I mean, the flip side of that is that people need to tell us
Yeah,
that
exactly.
they've got a timing issue. There are things we can do, like we're about to do at the end of this meeting, to move the timing of meetings or schedule an additional
Exactly.
meeting
Exactly.
to be able to get approvals done in time for things to happen. We did that back in August for Woodlawn Syracuse.
Yeah, it's just a bad form for us to be routinely approving things that are in violation because, one, because we don't necessarily have a pathway, and two, because people ignore the rules. So, okay, so that said, any other comments from the board? Jill? All right, so I will, you have a resolution?
No, but I, based on what you said, I agree. And I think that's something that we need to consider as well.
Yeah, it's just, the resolution, where did it go? Is, whereas, so it's, I guess we can either do this as two resolutions or as one with two parts. One is approving nunc pro tunc, the demolition of the church building as a major alteration. And number two, approving construction of the new office in the garage. Mike, I have a slightly different number from you. I have $156,967.
Let me take a look.
Let's double check that before we put it in the resolution.
1,005, what number did you have?
156,967.